Hello students, today's topics will be on factual equations in terms of the vector potential A and the scalar potential phi. So Maxwell equations we have studied in terms of the electric field in magnetic field, but now we will study how we can write the Maxwell equations in terms of the scalar potential phi and in the vector potential A. So this is one of the outlines of our lecture. Another point we will discuss here is how to uh, derive the wave equations. Now wave equations will be then also in terms of the potentials A and phi, because when we have written the Maxwell equations in terms of phi and A, the wave equations can also be written in terms of phi and A. But here these equations in the initial stage will be the coupled form of equations. Coupled form of equation means it will involve both A and phi. So after we uncouple it, we will get separate equations for the scalar potential phi and the vector potential. So the third point of our lecture will be the uncoupling of the wave equations. Uncoupling of the wave equations means we have to get separate wave equation for one for A and the other for phi. So going over to the next slide, we will first write the Maxwell equations in terms of A and phi. So starting with the homogeneous equation, Maxwell equations, which are the two homogeneous Maxwell equations we all know. So one of the homogeneous equation is divergence of B is equal to 0, which means the absence of free monopoles. This equation, what does this equation imply? We all know that the divergence of the curl of a vector field f of r is always 0. So divergence of the curl of a vector field is 0, and here we are having a vector field whose divergence is 0. So naturally we can express B also in terms of a curl of a vector field, and suppose it is the curl of a vector field A. Now A is called the vector potential. Why we call it vector potential? Drawing analogy from the equations such as E equal to minus gradient of phi, where there is some sort of derivative acting on the potential which gives rise to a field. So similarly, curl operation is again a sort of derivative which acting on a field. So we will call the term A as the vector potential. Now another homogeneous equation in the Maxwell collection is the curl of E equal to minus del B upon del T, which is naturally the Faraday's law. Time varying magnetic field giving rise to an induced electric EMF, and the differential form of the Faraday's law is curl of E equal to minus del B upon del T. So writing curl of E plus what we have written as E as curl of A, so we can write del upon del T of curl of A equal to 0. Combining the two terms, curl of E plus del A upon del T equal to 0. This implies that again curl of E plus del A upon del T equal to 0. This implies that E plus del A upon del T can be expressed as a gradient of a scalar potential, that is gradient of phi. we have put minus sign drawing analogy with the uh, parallel formula which we have studied in for the case of electrostatics. So we get an equation for E in terms of the vector and scalar potential as minus gradient of phi minus del A upon del T. So this is an equation which we have written in E in terms of A and phi, and this one is the magnetic field which has been expressed in terms of the vector potential A. So going over to the equations again, we number it. This is equation number 1 and this is equation number 2. This is Faraday's law, give it equation number 3, and then this expression as equation number 4. So again we remember that what was our motive. We have highlighted that equations, Maxwell equations, we will express it in terms of the vector potential and scalar potential. So we have fully exhausted the divergence of B equal to 0 as B equal to curl of A. Whatever was implied in this equation, we have taken it out. Similarly, for the other equation, Faraday's law, from there also we have taken out the expression of E in terms of phi and A. Now what to do next? Our next step will be to now look for the two non-homogeneous equations. Now what are the non-homogeneous equations? We all know non-homogeneous equations of the electrodynamics, Maxwell electrodynamics, is the divergence of E equal to rho upon epsilon naught, and the other equation is the modified Ampere's law, or what we call as the Ampere-Maxwell theorem. Curl of B equal to mu 0 into J plus mu 0 epsilon naught del E upon del T. These are the two non-homogeneous equations with sources. Now, as we have seen, E has been expressed in terms of the vector and scalar potential. So we use that expression here, and then we can write it as minus gradient of phi minus del A upon del T is equal to rho upon epsilon naught. And this gives as del square phi plus del upon del T of divergence of A, because we have commuted the partial time derivative and the space derivative. Therefore, del square phi plus divergence of A is equal to minus rho upon epsilon naught. So this is our equation number in the equation number 4. And here what we'll have to do, this equation curl of B equal to mu 0 J, we put B as curl of A. So curl of A is equal to mu 0 into J plus mu 0 into epsilon 0 del E upon del T. And curl of A is gradient of divergence of A minus del square A is equal to mu 0 J plus mu 0 into epsilon 0 del upon del T of, in terms of E, again you express the potential for E minus gradient of phi minus del A upon del T. So essentially we have put E and B in terms of phi and A for the two non-homogeneous equations, and we combine the terms. So combining the terms, how can we write it? So the minus del square A minus plus mu 0 into epsilon 0. So this is the term, and then this term del square A, this is minus sign, and so if we take to the other side, we will get plus mu 0 epsilon 0 del 2A upon del T2, and the other terms are plus gradient of divergence of A plus mu minus sign, again it will be plus here, plus mu 0 epsilon naught del phi upon del t is equal to mu 0 into j. So these are all vector fields. So it is all implied that whenever a, j, e comes, these are all vector fields. So finally rearranging, we can again change the sign del 2a minus mu 0 into epsilon 0 del 2a upon del t2 minus gradient of divergence of A plus mu 0 into epsilon 0 del phi upon del t is equal to minus mu 0 into j. So this is the equation number 5 probably. Okay, we can check it. So this is equation number 5, and this is equation number 4, and these are equation number 5. So if you see, these equations 4 and 5 are still equations 4 and 5 are coupled equations. They are both involve A and 5. So yes, in the first part of our task, we have converted all the equations in terms of Maxwell equations in terms of A and 5. When we wrote the homogeneous equations, we got B as curl of A and E as minus gradient of phi minus del A by del T. The other two non-homogeneous equations give the equations number 4 and 5. So if we now look at the equations 4 and 5, they are coupled equations. So equations 4 and 5 are still coupled equations, and we need to uncouple it. We need to uncouple these equations. Why? Because the more simpler form will involve definitely only a single potential. We need to uncouple these equations to get separate equations. For A and 5. Separate equations for A and 5. How can be this done? If you look at the equations 4 and 5, you see that, for example, equation 4 gives del square phi plus del upon del t of divergence of A is equal to minus rho upon epsilon naught. Whereas equation number 5 is del square A minus mu 0 into epsilon naught del 2A upon del T2 minus gradient of divergence of A plus mu 0 into epsilon naught del phi upon del T is equal to minus mu 0 into j. So we need to remember these two equations because they will be often used. So if we look at these equations 4 and 5, we can see that if we put especially in the equation number 5, if we put divergence of A plus, somehow we fix this term. Which term? We fix this term, divergence of A plus mu 0 into epsilon 0 del phi by del t equal to 0. Then you can see that this term vanishes and you get a very simpler form involving only the potential A. So then we get a wave equation for the potentials A and for the potential vector potential A. So just we make a note, if we somehow fix divergence of A plus mu 0 into epsilon naught del phi by del t equal to 0, then equation number 5 reduces to an equation which involves only vector potential A. And what happens to the equation number 4? Equation number 4 becomes del square phi. Equation number 4 becomes del square phi plus del by del t of divergence of A becomes equal to minus mu 0 into epsilon 0 del phi by del t if this condition, above condition, is satisfied. And then we get a wave equation such as del square phi minus mu 0 into epsilon 0 del 2 phi upon del t2 is equal to minus rho upon epsilon naught. And equation 5 becomes equal to the wave equation, the more familiar form of the wave equation which we all have studied in our earlier classes, del 2a upon del t2 is equal to minus mu 0 into j. But now the question arises, how can we perform this? How can we fix the value of divergence of A plus mu 0 epsilon 0 del phi by del t equal to 0? So now I start by asking you a question, which I will be probably asking you two questions. Which are the original fields? Which are the original measurable fields? Original measurable fields. The answer will be the electric field and the magnetic field. So we all might be knowing that the observable quantities are the electric field and magnetic field. And which are the auxiliary fields? Which are the auxiliary quantities? The auxiliary quantities are the vector potential and the scalar potential. So the auxiliary quantities are the vector potential, again a field quantity, vector field, and again the scalar potential. So are E and B unique? Yes, E and B are unique. They will be having a unique values. E and B will be having unique values. Values are unique. But whether A and phi are unique, so this we will have to test it, because I have told you in the earlier slide that we want to fix the value of divergence of A plus mu 0 epsilon 0 del phi by del t equal to 0. So it may be possible that the initial set of the potentials A and phi are, for the initial set, this condition is not valid. Or even if it is valid, can we do further tailoring of these potentials, or further we can change these potentials? Can we perform this? So for checking this, we will have to see whether A and phi are unique or we can change it. E and B are definitely the fields, electric field and magnetic fields are unique, but whether A and phi are unique, so we need to check it. How can we do? As we have seen that divergence of B equal to 0 gives, definitely is exhausted when we say that B can be expressed as curl of A. So B has a unique value. So whether A is unique or we can change A to some other vector potential without changing B. So one of you will give the answer that yes, we can add a constant to a. But apart from constant, can you change a to some other potential a dash? A to a dash. How can you change a to a dash? A dash can be changed. A can be changed to a dash without changing b, only up to the extent of adding a gradient of a scalar field. So let a be changed as a plus gradient of chi. So chi is a scalar field. This scalar field. Now if I take curl of a dash, let me see what we will get. Curl of a dash is curl of a plus curl of gradient of the chi. Now curl of gradient of chi is the scalar field, chi is 0. So again we get curl of a, and curl of a is the original b field. So if we change a to the extent of, if we change a to which extent? To the extent of adding the gradient of a scalar, chi, p does not change. P doesn't change. So essence of is that we are getting some freedom in defining a. So this is this freedom in choosing a is justified. Why it is justified? Because it doesn't change the B field. But what about E? Whether E changes, we will have to check it, because you cannot leave E as a changed quantity. Whether E changes, so let us check for it. So if E is minus gradient of phi minus del A upon del T. Now if we change A to A dash, so E will be all let us change EA to A dash. So let us see what role it has on the value of E. So E becomes equal to, suppose it is A dash. If it comes out to be the same quantity as written here, then it is well. Then it is minus gradient of phi minus del A upon del T, and A is A plus gradient of the chi. So it comes out to be minus gradient of phi minus del A upon del T. Very good. The two terms are as it is. But then here you are saying that there is an additional term coming over here. Minus del upon del T of gradient of chi. So E dash is definitely not equal to E by changing A to A dash. So what we need is, we will have to simultaneously change phi also. Simultaneously, the moment we change A to A dash, we will have to simultaneously change phi to phi dash. And what will be the new phi dash? Phi dash will be equal to phi minus, because this is E dash, this is the additional term. So here if we have changed phi as phi minus del gradient of del chi by del t, then this term will cancel out with this because this is a minus sign. If you plug in over here, then this will become plus and this will cancel out. So phi dash will be finally equal to phi minus gradient of del chi by del t. The next step will be, now having changed e to e as e dash and check it as whether it is the same as e or not. You can check it by yourself and see that by changing phi as phi minus del chi by gradient of phi dash is equal to phi minus gradient of del chi by del t, you will find that it will not change the value of e. So we will use this freedom implied in choosing the potentials A and phi. The freedom in choosing freedom in choosing A and phi will be used in fixing the value of divergence of A plus mu 0 epsilon 0 del phi upon del t equal to 0. What does this mean? That even if we have the initial set of potentials A and phi for which this condition is not true, then we can make a transformation of A and phi to A dash and phi dash. We know that by doing such transformations, the original fields E and B don't change. And what are those transformations? We can again write it as A dash equal to A plus, these are all our vector fields, gradient of chi, and phi dash is equal to phi minus gradient of del chi upon del t. So these transformations are called gauge transformation. These transformations are called gauge transformation. And the invariance of fields under gauge transformation which fields E and P, gauge transformations, is called gauge invariance. This is called gauge invariance. So finally, if we now have found out the potentials, have found out a set of potentials A and phi which satisfy the condition divergence of A plus mu 0 epsilon 0 del phi upon del t equal to 0, then we can uncouple the equations to get separate wave equations, we can get separate wave equations for A and phi. And the separate wave equation means del square phi minus mu 0 into epsilon 0 del 2 phi upon del T2 is equal to minus rho upon epsilon naught, and del 2A, the wave equation in terms of the vector potential, del 2A upon del T2, because the other term becomes equal to 0 if we have found out the set of potentials using a proper gauge function chi. Then this condition, this equation turns out to be 0, and then we can write a wave equation for A, which is del 2A minus mu 0 epsilon naught del 2A upon del T2 equal to minus mu 0 into J. So the condition, now important point to note is the condition divergence of A plus mu 0 epsilon naught del phi upon del T equal to 0 is called the Lorentz condition. So this is the Lorentz condition. The transformations E A dash equal to A plus gradient of chi, and phi dash is equal to phi minus gradient of del chi upon del T. These are called the gauge transformation. These are called the gauge transformation. And next, the invariance of E and B field. So under these gauge transformations, if E remains the same as E dash and B becomes B dash, then the fields are said to be the invariant quantities under the gauge transformation. So this is all about the uncoupling of the Maxwell equation to get separate wave equations, how we use the freedom involved in the definitions of B and E. The freedom involved is not in the using B and E, but the freedom involved is in the auxiliary quantities A and phi. So A and phi can definitely be changed. So finally, we have seen that the Lorentz condition is a very important mark. What is the Lorentz condition? Divergence of A plus mu 0 epsilon 0 del phi upon del T equal to 0. So this is a very important marker in our today's lecture. Now you will remember here that there may be two conditions. First condition may be there may be two cases. One of the case may be that the original set of potentials A and phi don't satisfy Lorentz condition, don't satisfy the Lorentz condition. So we can still make gauge transformations. We'll be making gauge transformations, Definitely, how will we make gauge transformation? We will have to look out for a proper choice of the gauge function. Proper choice of the gauge function chi. And then we can definitely find out the set of potentials A and phi which satisfy the Lorentz condition. But again, if the case 2 will be if A and phi satisfy the Lorentz condition. Then even then you can make gauge transformation. Even then we can make gauge transformations to move over to new set of potentials A dash and phi dash, which satisfy the Lorentz condition. So today's lecture we will stop here now, and we will continue with the Coulomb's gauge in our next lecture. Thank you.